Yeah, so my name is Abhishek, and I'm actually the customer success manager for Chartbeat in Asia. So like for today's session, we have something very special for all of you, and we are very humbled and also thankful to have lovely panelists join this session to essentially talk about user loyalty and retention. So without wasting any further time, I would first start by asking each panelist to introduce themselves. And maybe Korey, we could probably start with you.
Sure, sounds good. Hello, everybody. I come from a startup background. I joined SEMP about 4 years ago to apply data and technology to the media space. I'm excited to be here today to share more about what we've worked on over the past few years and also to learn from the other panelists' insight. Our data team includes data analysts, data scientists, and data engineering, and we have a centralized team that serves our entire organization of about 1,000 people.
Cool. So Lyn, we can start with you.
Yep, I oversee the growth team at CNA, previously known as Channel News Asia. It's a Singapore-headquartered Asian news provider, the large TV station and website. So my team advises CNA on publishing and social media strategy. Our aim is to grow the CNA brand in terms of traffic and reach. We are all journalists, even though we are a cross-functional team. And we say to people, it's your job to tell a good story. It's our job to get your work seen and read.
Cool.
Christopher.
Perfect.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the digital editor at the Business Times, which is a Singapore press holdings publication. I've been a digital editor for 8 years, but I've been there for 17 years, but done a bit of everything. These days, I focus a lot on platform development and audience and content strategy. Cross-functional is the name of the game. We look a lot at data. We work closely with people. We use Scrum not just for tech. We have started applying Scrum, which is 2-week sprints, to editorial as well. And I am the product owner for the BT Agile team.
Yeah, Dom. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dominic from REV Media Group. I'm head of commerce and optimization here. REV Media Group is part of Media Prima Berhad. REV Media Group is basically the digital arm. The group is, of course, one of the biggest media companies in Malaysia with out-of-home TV, print, billboard. But REV Media Group here is the digital arm, and we aim to kind of like integrate with everything here. My responsibilities over here are kind of regards to the ad operations, the ad server. I look after audience management, which is the data management platform. And I also have a hat in terms of user experience and yield purposes. So that might be affiliate marketing, new business opportunities. Under user experience, I like to look at SEO and certain KPIs for all of the websites under the group. And yeah, I also work quite closely with the various editorial teams to help promote technologies and data. But I guess I'm a bit more at the back end.
Great. Yeah. So firstly, thank you so much for the lovely introductions, guys. And we have like a very exciting panel here with different roles. But then I think there's been one key element out of all the roles, which is data. So we will definitely deep dive into this further in today's conversation, where we'll essentially talk about user loyalty, retention, engagement, and also how data looks like now, moving forward, post pandemic, or say still in the pandemic, but hopefully getting done soon. So in terms of your current goals, or what initiatives are you guys taking to actually achieve these goals? So maybe Korey, we could probably start with you on what current goals are you looking at for this year, and also what kind of initiatives are you taking to say achieve those goals?
Sure. So we have 3 primary goals this year. The first is to deepen our user understanding. The second is to drive monetization strategy with data. And the third is to really mature our data culture. So I'll dig into each of those a little bit and talk about some of the initiatives. For the first one, deepening user understanding, that's really to optimize the user experience, engagement, and retention. So throughout the entire funnel and the entire customer experience, from when they first come to the South China Morning Post all the way to when they actually convert, become a subscriber, and are reading us on a daily basis. We want to build that habit and really understand how they're us throughout their user journey. So that involves building personas, modeling cohorts, and better understanding and deepening our behavioral data to ensure that we can provide a customized experience to our end users, but also to understand why they're coming and understand the motivations they're coming to SCMP for. The second one, building monetization strategy, is really in relation to us building the paywall back in last August. So we've been doing extensive A/B testing, and what we've realized is that different customers come to SCMP for different reasons, and they respond to different messaging. Right, some will respond to messaging about journalism and that that being meaningful. Others respond to different types of content there as well. So that's the kind of data-backed monetization strategy. And then finally, data culture. So this is really business partnership, not only with the newsroom, but also with our marketing, product, engineering, and people teams as well. And really getting getting people data into the hands of the people that need it the most, and really driving education and data usage across the company. So there's a data democratization piece there.
Cool. And then, I mean, I do know that you also mentioned that at one point in time, that you are also running some initiatives within your newsroom, right? I mean, like, would you like to talk about that in more detail?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So for CNA in particular, we're looking at making sure your experience and every interaction with our brand is time well spent, and that if nothing else, is a useful distraction. So my team, the growth team, is basically there it's a bunch of ninjas that educates everybody on this, how to act on actionable insights. Everything that you see on Chartbeat, which is great for picking up spiking interest real time, and stuff like MediaCorp's Ripple software, which uses machine learning and data from our past stories to predict the performance of a certain story at a particular time of the day. We can see that a certain story is performing or not performing, and then we take action based on that. Numbers in themselves are not meaningful to us. So even though sometimes we think, okay, our KPI is met, we can rest up for the day. They're actually important clues for us. We dive right in. We look at who's looking at our stories, what are they saying in the comments, what sort of knowledge gaps do they have that we need to address for further and future stories. So our aim is to make the media more reflective of you and your concerns. And ultimately, if you see something that's not doing well, that's where your editorial judgment comes in. From all your years of experience, you can tell that something has all the signs of a winner. Why is it not doing well? So do you have to do something? How can you save that story? Should you A/B test the headline? Are people not staying long enough? Do you have to rewrite your intro? Maybe tighten your social hook? That kind of thing is what we're doing. We are monitoring long-term trends, but also telling people how to act quickly.
Sorry, Korey, I know you actually had something else to add, right? I mean, because you were just going to add something, like just before.
Oh no, it's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. So like if it's safe to assume, so then I think in terms of common patterns, so then something that's actually happening here is that you are trying to make you are trying to work more with editorial, actually come out with a culture within the organization where where actually data becomes an important element, right? And then using that, as I hear from you, Korey, I think subscription is something that's definitely one of the key drivers that you are focusing on, and actually thinking about that, because Dom, I know you mentioned this, that that I think DMPs is something that you're actively looking at, and also audience development. So then, in terms of similar patterns, or say, is there something different that that you're doing with your newsrooms, which say you would like to share as well?
I guess I can share a little bit of our plans in terms of user loyalty and retention and new users and that kind of sort. What we're really trying to do this year when it comes to this area, right, is what we've noticed is, naturally we want to grow our loyal users. I think that's super clear. As RMG, what we've noticed is, especially for some of our news portals, our news sites, the ARPU, the average revenue per user for the loyal users is really high compared to a new user, returning user. So as a strategic goal this year, what we're planning to do is really focus on building these loyal users for internal and both external marketing channels. And by this, I mean focusing on these new and returning users and nurturing them to become loyal users. And how we're planning to do that is basically we're segmenting these various buckets of users, these various stages for every single website. So under RMG, we have about 35 plus different websites across the group. So we have to do this for each and every website, essentially, to determine and find these users. And the whole point of it is to really, activate this audience segmentation across whatever channel is possible, whether it's from Facebook ads, Google ads, whether it's from internal website personalization, EDMs, banners, whichever, right? But the whole point is to have that constant funnel of creating the user loyalty segment and seeing that grow over time. But of course, it's not as simple as that. There's a lot more to it when it comes to personalization, and the content that you're driving to users is super important and needs to be very relevant for them. So how we kind of go about with that is really zoom into these specific audiences and try to understand them, what's their interest is, what kind of things they like to do, what actions they do across the group. And we try to educate and share this information with all the editorial teams as well, so that they understand how to build the campaign in that regard as well.
And Chris, from the editorial side of things, how are you driving this sort of change, and also what are the goals that you're focusing on?
Well, yeah, even though my primary role is editorial, I did mention earlier that cross-functional teams are the name of the game. But then again, everyone needs to know where they're playing in the funnel, what's their role in the funnel, and funnel discipline is key. How are they contributing to the funnel? And everyone needs to work together, because otherwise, there can be a logjam up at the top of the funnel, in the middle of the funnel, and things don't follow through. So everyone needs to know where they're playing and how they play together. When it comes to the newsroom, audience is key, because the Business Times is the only financial daily in Singapore. So we're niche, we're very focused, which means we must make sure that we're serving our niche audience well. We try and make sure that all the journalists have access to data. It's very much a question of culture. We do talk to all the journalists about loyalty and retention, because there have been so many studies about how retaining a customer is it depends on what numbers you see, 3 to 10 times easier than acquiring a new customer. And we're talking about new acquisitions. We're not even talking about reacquisitions, because once you lose a customer, it's exponentially harder to reacquire a customer you've lost. So the stakes are high. Audience is key. Acquisition, well, we want to acquire, but retaining is easier than acquisition. So the retention has to be there, so that you're not bailing water out of a leaking ship.
So, I know we've spoken about acquisition and retention, and I think something that we also should think about is that, with the pandemic happening last year, things completely changed, right? Because there was a new transformation altogether. So, maybe Korey, you could probably take this up, because I do know that SCMP has been running initiatives for for actually a very long time. Has there been a change in terms of thinking or timelines, say since the pandemic has happened?
Yeah, I think the pandemic certainly stress tested our culture as a whole, but definitely our data culture as well. So we really needed to come up with new and better ways to improve communication, to flag important metrics, and to really make sure that these any outliers or any issues were highlighted to the teams, particularly to the newsroom on a regular basis, especially with our team over the course of several months this past year, working remote and both kind of in and out of the office. Thankfully, in Hong Kong, the situation has been a little bit better, and so we've had several waves, and we've been back, kind of back and forth, working from home and in the office. So it hasn't been a complete year of remote work, but we've rolled out tools like social media monitoring to help the newsroom better understand what's happening in Chinese social media, with platforms like Douyin and Weibo. And then we've also launched spike alerts in Slack. So if we see an article that's spiking very similar to what you see in Chartbeat, We push that to Slack as well, so that whoever's on the go on monitoring that on the homepage or whatever can get that information right away. We found that it's really important to be over communicative of data and what's going on with our weekly metrics. So we'll present our KPIs actually in 3 different meetings on Tuesday. It's the same KPIs, but we present it to 3 different groups of people, to our executive team, to our news group, and then also to Masthead over the course of the day, so that we ensure that everybody's on the same page. In terms of the timelines, to your last question, I think it really does require our end users to use the data tools that we've built, and to really enable and empower them to make decisions autonomously. So we put the data kind of back in the hands and given our teams dashboards and tools to actually access this data on their own, so they can see what they need to see on a regular basis. And this democratization and increase of data fluency over the course of the past year has really helped our organization, especially in this critical time over the course of this past pandemic year.
So I mean, like, just out of curiosity, like, and I think anyone can take this, right? I mean, like, was it very challenging in the beginning to like suddenly throw like such a big, like, say, process, or like actually have data be involved into everything because of this? And I mean, this is just an open question to the panelists. Okay, so like, feel free for anyone to answer.
I think it's really like accelerated. The pandemic has really kind of like accelerated a lot of data and digital kind of activities across the group, which is great. I mean, it's really the direction and natural place to go moving forward. We see the editorial teams definitely being a lot more receptive to data, definitely wanting to understand more about their users. So it's really kind of like pushing things forwards. On my side, I have to deal with like the third-party cookie apocalypse. That's something that's happening on my side, which is fun to deal with all the fear happening. But I think everyone will be okay as long as you have a strategy in mind. A lot of my time is doing a lot of data consolidation as well. That's really key during this era. Bringing in all your data into that single source and having that source of truth is really powerful. And I definitely something which the pandemic is kind of like making everyone focus, obviously, on their first party data.
So like, I mean, like, even though we have like 2 like big data experts here, we also have 2 like editorial, okay, as well as also data experts, I would say, because I mean, we all need to know data. But then I would like, I think Chris and Lyn, this is more applicable for you guys because you guys have been able to bring that change. So like, were people in the newsroom receptive when you actually started talking about content data, or like reader loyalty, or say subscription? I mean, like, so yes, maybe if you could just walk us through like that, and
well,
and how was that?
Sure. I mean, the thing is, data paralysis is a real problem, right? When you just throw data at everybody. Otherwise, I mean, just throw people in an Excel sheet, right? And then it's all good. No. Dashboard design is an art. So yeah, we do have a lot of dashboards, conversion dashboards, etc., and all that. But speaking from the newsroom perspective, it's pretty hard to beat the Chartbeat big board, which is the main Chartbeat dashboard that you display on TV screens in the newsroom, for sheer simplicity, because you focus people on metrics without. Of course, the danger then is that you get tunnel vision. Oh, I just need to up my engage time, because there is no single source of truth. There are multiple sources of truth that you then have to synthesize depending on the problem you're tackling. But it's very helpful to not overwhelm journalists with data and then choose key metrics to showcase to them. But then you have to constantly interpret it for them. Otherwise, there's tunnel vision. I just need to up my PVs and UVs. It's about more than that. So we have a weekly data a newsletter, that internal newsletter in the newsroom that we send out. We call it Bob. Yeah, the business of business. That's written by a colleague of mine. And then we break it down. This is what it means. People are reading you, but what sources are they reading you from? What does it mean about how you write, how we're engaging them? What does it mean about the value? Because ultimately, that's why people read you. People read you because of the value you provide to them. And then the sales folks and the circulation folks capitalize on that value in order to form this virtuous cycle. So where do you play in that? data is key, but it has to be accessible data to avoid data paralysis.
Okay, let me jump in here. So I come from a TV background where all we got were arcane ratings. Sometimes we'll get numbers like a 4.0 for P15 group. We don't even know what that means. Was it a dog and our grandma in front of a TV? What in particular engaged you in that entire segment? We don't know. Was the TV on for white noise? So once we put up our Chartbeat big board, we sent out regular alerts whenever something was spiking. Everybody was really happy to see that they're not working blind anymore. And the fact that we empowered them, it's not just informing, but empowering them to act on that data and showing them the results, because we follow up. We don't have a weekly newsletter, but we follow up pretty quickly to tell you, okay, this worked, do more of it. If this didn't work, you need to do better. And we put it in a friendly way. It's not that we're nagging you, it's just that your work is important, we want to get it seen. So another thing that we care a lot about is not just what's doing well in general. We look at the overall mix of stories that's doing well. In particular, the pandemic has made me more aware of anxiety, not just within the newsroom, but for our audience, because it's this never-ending train of bad news. So how do we make sure that we are not associated with numbness and news fatigue? So we make sure that we plot enough soft stuff in there that, yes, there might be a train crash somewhere, there might be strife in a country, but we have all these evergreen content to kind of help you regain your sanity and have a pause. It's very important for reader retention that you don't get more of the same. Let's say we are serving you like meat, so we serve you steak all the time. Is that right for you? Is that nutritious? Is that sustainable? Don't you want vegetables, seafood, dessert sometimes even? So we care a lot about the news mix ultimately. And I think that's key to retention and loyalty as well, because you want something that you feel at home with, a brand that knows you. The reason why you sign in through Netflix and Spotify is that particular digital experience, there's an incentive for you to sign in. There's a clear value proposition. I know you, I'm going to recommend stuff for you, and basically broaden your horizons.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I was actually just going to sum that up, but if I had to understand, I think the best way to avoid, say, reader fatigue is to actually offer them different types of content, okay, which they like, so that they can stay on longer, and then you keep them engaged and retained. So I did have quite a few questions, but then we actually have quite a few questions from the audiences. So maybe let's take that, and then and we also do have only 7 minutes, so I think so we have to probably hurry up. Okay, so the first question by Jyoti Pratibha is: are your teams working with AI, such as Sophie, and how reliable is working with AI? Yeah, so maybe Korey, you could take this, because I know you actually have a lot to talk about AI, right?
Yeah, we're definitely investing quite a bit in our own AI and ML capabilities over the course. Well, we have been over the course of the past few years in topic tagging, in this year in particular, focusing on content recommendations and building our own in-house content recommendation engine. We've also done some work on evergreen tagging, so making sure that we can understand what our evergreen articles are. That helps our newsroom and our social team with promotion of that content, and also longer term kind of recirculation and getting users back to that that evergreen type of content. And really, I think we've been thinking a lot about how whenever we think about AI or ML, it's always in the context of either driving better efficiency within the newsroom or within the broader organization, or driving some kind of revenue conversion. So we really think of it in terms of value creation, making our newsroom more efficient, so our editors aren't sitting there manually going through and tagging topic tags, so it saves them time, makes their life a little bit better, or really helping us to convert users and drive them further down the experience funnel.
Cool. All right. Yes, I hope that answers your question, Jyoti. So now we have another question. Maybe Chris, you could take this one. How are we approaching data-informed practice attracted to readers? Yeah. So that's.
Well, I guess first you have to make sure that journalists have access, right? Content creators have access to the data, so that it feeds back in that virtuous cycle I talked about earlier. People need to know how people are consuming them, and they need to be open to testing different kinds of presentation, tweaking the content, tweaking how they are delivering that value to their readers or listeners or viewers. And managers and editors need to give them that freedom to experiment, so that there isn't a fear of failure, that, oh, my numbers are going down. There needs to be that room, that mandate that you can experiment, you can look at the data. As long as you can explain why you're acting on the data, we give you that freedom to own that data. And again, it's about metrics as well, KPIs. Do you want to make a data a metric tied to performance? That's a whole other a whole can of worms. But the short story is, I would say no. It's about self-improvement, owning your data, which is what from tech teams, Scrum and all. Burn down charts and productivity are for teams to do better. It's not for management to hold over you. Same thing when we apply data and Scrum to editorial teams. It's about owning the data so that you feel empowered. That word's been thrown around a lot, right? You feel empowered to act on the data without fear of incrimination or a recrimination or a lower bonus next year.